What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for tonight's single game showdown slate, Monday Night Football. It is the New York Giants and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. In this video, we will discuss the injuries that impact tonight's slate. Fortunately, there aren't that many, so we don't have to monitor news throughout the day. We will discuss core plays and low-risk lineup construction tips, and then ideas, picks, and strategies for the largest GPPs that both DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer. Let's jump into it, and we will start with the injuries. Pretty clean. There are a couple minor injuries on both sides, but really the one impactful injury, it is a defensive injury. It is Cordell Flott, cornerback for the Giants. He is out. They're also missing some reserve corners, so some pain in the secondary for the Giants. So that just gives a bump to George Pickens and the rest of the Pittsburgh passing game. So keep that in mind as you're building for tonight. Other than that, we're pretty good to go. No news to monitor. That's a stark difference from seemingly every other slate we've had the past couple of weeks. So build your lineups early. You should be good to go. I say that now. We'll get a Rico Dowdle late arriving to the stadium inactive like we did last night, but fingers crossed, hopefully we will not. So let's talk about low risk contests now, 50-50s, double ups, head to heads. This is where you play the core plays in a majority of your lineups. Just got to beat half the field to double your money. And you know our strategy by now if you've been watching these videos. Try to lock up all the scoring by playing both quarterbacks and both running backs. If possible, any obvious value plays or any high target, high value wide receivers. Now, DraftKings just decided not to even try this week. It's pretty remarkable that this continues to happen, and this is one of the worst pricing mistakes I've seen. They just are not paying attention. And if you look at Devin Singletary, running back for the Giants, is $8,400 in the flex on DraftKings, and the actual starter, Tyrone Tracy, is $4,400. Now, this has been the case for the past 4 weeks. Obviously, Singletary was hurt, and when Singletary returned last week, it was Tracy who regained the starting role and kept the starting role. And now, again, we don't know how much of this was due to Singletary coming back from his injury. We don't know how much it was due to game script. Remember, they did get blown out last week. But Tracy outsnapped Devin Singletary 39-12. Even if that comes back to 50-50, there's no reason for this pricing to be 4,400 for Tracy and 8,400 for Singletary. It's just completely bad, and it's frustrating to see these types of mispricings when millions of dollars are on the line all the time. So yeah, excuse me for being a little upset about this, but it shouldn't happen. All you need is one person to check this every time. Regardless, as a result, we'll see Tyrone Tracy as one of the heaviest owned players, definitely the highest owned player under 5K, and for good reason. Even if he splits 50-50, he's a core play at that price tag. So because of that, we're allowed to fit in the four core guys. We look at Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson. Najee Harris is still leading the workload for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Jaylen Warren did outsnap him last week, 35-33, but it was still Najee Harris leading him in rushes, 21-12. That will likely continue. I still believe Najee Harris is holding on by a thread to having this pretty solid role for fantasy and his production the last couple of weeks. I don't think it truly defines the downside that he does have for the rest of the season. But in a showdown environment, we're still going to play him, again, pretty pricey at $9,200. And maybe in large field contests or high risk contests, that's where you start to lean into the belief that he's overvalued. But in low risk contests, he's the guy that we want to play, especially getting goal line work. So Najee Harris. And then we put in Tyrone Tracy at $4,400, $6,350 per player. We can do literally whatever we want. With this type of mispricing, we'll want to get in one of Malik Neighbors or George Pickens. Our model prefers Malik Neighbors. I think most projection systems do as well. So Malik Neighbors, $2,700. You could play Theo Johnson, who, again, is a tight end one, running 35 routes a game, and he is $2,400. Just no reason for him to be that cheap. Very easy. Now, again, whatever captain you choose, that's up to you. Jones, Wilson, Harris, Tracy. Look at ownership, look at our model, and determine which one you want to go. But it is very easy to build low-risk lineups on DraftKings tonight. And as a result, we're going to see a lot of concentrated ownership and a lot of lineups that look similar in high-risk contests on DraftKings because of this. So whether you like to lean into the chalk or you like these types of slates to get different, you have it tonight because of these mispricings. Now on FanDuel, I would love to show you what the FanDuel the FanDuel salaries look like. However, I cannot prove to FanDuel that I am a human this morning, so can't show you that. But visualize it with me. Maybe bring up the screen on your own end as I talk through this. Now, they priced these guys appropriately for the Giants. Tyrone Tracy is 11.5. and Singletary is 11,000, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, they are not drastically different in pricing. And as a result, we can probably exclude those guys from our FanDuel low-risk lineups. Over there, we could just play 3 of Daniel Jones and Najee Harris and Russell Wilson and be fine with it. And then we can fit in 2 mid-range players to go along with it. That is the strategy we want to use for FanDuel tonight. And again, I would love to show you, but once again, the sites are are letting me down here. So let's move on to high-risk contests, GPPs, leagues, satellites. Lots of people. You got to beat a lot of people to win a lot of money or win a large ticket. We'll talk about the strategies there. Let's get the water break in first. Nice and hydrated on this Monday morning. And let's talk about these high-risk contests and some ideas. We have 2 underperforming players in this game. And if you have stuck around or you've been around before, you've read our content or watched our videos, you know about underperforming wide receivers. And they had a pretty banner day yesterday. CeeDee Lamb was an underperforming wide receiver last night, was the optimal captain in that showdown slate. Calvin Ridley was like 4% owned across both sites, and he was an underperforming wide receiver, over 100 yards receiving. It's been a pretty good year so far for these spike weeks for underperforming wide receivers. Now, we do have a fringe one tonight. It's Darius Slayton for the New York Giants. And yes, part of his underperforming status, at least the volume-driven aspect of it, is due to Malik Neighbors being out 2 weeks ago. He had over 100 air yards in that game. Obviously, that's going to skew the numbers a little bit. But if we look at his other games and we look at his opportunity and how he's been underperforming, he's actually had 95-plus air yards in 3 of the last 4 weeks, which is enough to get on the list, right? It wasn't just a one-week blip on the radar of him getting a lot of opportunity with Malik Neighbors out of the lineup. So he's going to be low owned, under 20%, maybe close to 10% in some contests, especially on DraftKings at his mid-range price tag of $5,800. And again, this is a high-risk only play. But if they have to throw more in this game and maybe the attention of the defense is focused more on Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton could be a beneficiary. And we always like to bump these guys. And our model already automatically bumps these guys, but if you're not using our tools at OccupyFantasy.com, mentally bump Darius Slayton if you're looking for that low-owned piece to differentiate, because again, everyone's going to play Tracy and have a similar lineup construction. The mid-range of, let's look at it here, this mid-range of kickers, Darius Slayton, the Steelers defense will be extremely popular despite being $5,400, which is crazy. But the kickers and Darius Slayton will not be popular. So keep that in mind if you're looking at this easy pivot of differentiation in high-risk contests. The other underperformer, it's not an Occupy-approved underperforming player. It is a running back. If you look at expected fantasy points versus actual fantasy points, remember in these videos, I always like to point you to the free resource of ESPN, Mike Clay's expected fantasy points. Many sites have this. We have this on our own backend at OccupyFantasy.com as well. But Jaylen Warren actually fits the bill. Starting to get more and more looks. Still not at the usage he was last year, but we look at his underperformance. He's underperformed his opportunity by about 8 points so far this year, and that's not a crazy number. But these guys have been hitting pretty at a pretty decent rate as well so far this year. Josh Jacobs was one yesterday. Devon Achane was one yesterday. Ramondre Stevenson scored. He was one yesterday. And now we're looking to Jaylen Warren. So Jaylen Warren, if you want to save some salary from Najee Harris, you want to pivot away from Wan'Dale Robinson, Jaylen Warren is $7,200, and even on FanDuel, Jaylen Warren is a fantastic play. If we're looking for a regression to hit, whether it's in Najee Harris's usage and his performance the last couple of weeks versus Jaylen Warren's underperformance and maybe his increase as he gets back full health from his injury. So Jaylen Warren, Darius Slayton, both guys we like as whether or not they can hit it in this one-game sample, but guys who are looking to revert towards the mean in a positive manner based on their recent production. So those are 2 guys I would favor heavily in high-risk contests. Other low-owned players that we're looking at, that we're thinking about for GPPs here is every receiver not named George Pickens or Malik Neighbors or even Wan'Dale Robinson, especially on DraftKings, but Calvin Austin on DraftKings, Van Jefferson on DraftKings, and then Darius Slayton, who we just talked about as well, so keep those guys in mind. Singletary, no one's going to play him because he shouldn't be this price, but look at Isaac Guerendo last night. Isaac Guerendo, obviously he was an injury-driven play. Really the only way Guerendo last night was going to get work and make the optimal lineup or any winning lineup whatsoever was if Jordan Mason went down. That's not necessarily the case with Devin Singletary. Yes, he's more expensive than Guerendo was yesterday, but there's an easy explanation where Singletary could regain his starting role, could split the backfield and outproduce Tracy. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but his ownership reflects that, and he's worth a shot in large field GPPs as a result. So keep that in mind as you're building. And anybody else? Yeah, the kickers, obviously, I mentioned. Because of their prices, because of Tracy, because of some of the other cheaper guys, the kickers will be maybe right around 20%, probably higher in smaller field GPPs. But, I mean, we'll take these guys at 15 to 25% all day. We've seen how kickers have been performing so far this year. And then the Giants defense. Russell Wilson, yes, had a great game last game. But are we convinced he's going to do it 2 in a row? Maybe. I'm willing to take a shot on a low-owned defense against him in that regard. When the opposing defense is going to be twice the ownership, we'll take the salary savings and play the Giants in high-risk contests as well. Anyone else we want to discuss here? I mean, lots of these guys are in play, right? Calvin Austin, wide receiver 3, ran 22 routes last week. Darnell Washington, maybe he gets a little less of a boost if Michael Pruitt is back tonight. That's a really under-the-radar return from injury, but Washington has been pretty good in his limited snaps, in his limited routes so far this year. So he's an option. Theo Johnson, we mentioned, is running 35 routes at $2,400. You can't get a much better play for the playing time at his price tag. And then a couple other guys down here will see the field occasionally, but really it's this group here that sees the most opportunity that you want to get into, especially your small field GPPs to help you fit in one more guy near the top. Finally, I think if we talk about FanDuel, Malik Neighbors stands out as the high-risk MVP over there. He's going to be the 4th highest guy. We have him anywhere from 10 to 15% projected at MVP. And we've seen the opportunity he gets so far this year, even in his rookie year. So Malik Neighbors is a guy that I think if you're going all in on one guy or you're looking for a pivot, Malik Neighbors, when we have Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones, going to be much higher owned at MVP. Let's take the guy who could get 20 targets, 15 targets. Really like playing that, and the model's a big fan of that as well. So I think that'll do it for tonight's slate. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, we are so close to 10,000 subscribers. Go ahead and drop the subscribe. It is free to do so. Free way to support the channel. You'll get entered into our 10K subscriber giveaway. Details will be coming soon on that, by the way. Give a thumbs up. The easiest, quickest way to support the channel is a thumbs up. Any questions, comment on the video below. I will get back to you before the slate starts tonight at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Discord is the best way to reach us and chat with other members of the community. OccupyFantasy.com/Discord. Link is in the description. Daily plug up this afternoon. Model's already up and running. Ownership is already up and running. Builder's already up and running. All the tools you need to start building lineups for tonight. And again, no news really, so you can start building right now after you finish watching this video. And again, I linked it at the beginning of the video. I'll link it here at the end of the video. You'll see it pop up right at the end here. But how to build showdown lineups in 2024. I did like an hour-and-a-half video on how I build lineups using our tools. Invaluable. A lot of people have gotten a lot out of it. So make sure you go watch that if you haven't already, or you need a refresher on how to build showdown lineups. So Brian for Occupy. Thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate it. And good luck on tonight's Giants and Steelers slate.